Okay. Okay. Hi. Um, Hi, everyone. I'm Dema. Um, Thank you all for having me. I'm so glad that 411 Collective is putting this on. Thank you all so much for the work that you do. And everyone in the team and everyone that's supporting this initiative. It's really great. So thank you. Today, I am going to read some poetry from Zaina Azzam's book. It's called Some Things Never Leave You. She's a Palestinian American poet and writer based in the DC area. And I saw her speak at an event a few months ago in Baltimore and devoured her book. And some of her poems really resonated and I really felt with it. And so I thought I would share a little bit. And especially that she's a Palestinian voice. And I don't know, it's important to have, as we're working towards liberation collectively, to have different representation of voices and people here. So I'm going to start with the first poem. Death in War. After the headlines, the photographs of still bodies and utter surrender, the stacking and burying in unmarked graves, don't turn away. Say a prayer for each farmer, teacher, bearded grandfather on a cane, mother whose scarf flies in the air, father staring at the ground. Think of the empty chairs at the dinner table, the shirt and socks missing from the clothesline. Remember each pair of hands that opened and closed, held a pencil, clapped with joy. And when the wheat and flowers they sowed reach towards the sun, bring water to these tenacious flags of presence on the land. I am going to pause, and I'm actually going to say a prayer from the Islamic faith that you say to for the martyrs in Palestine. During this time of genocide and also the general ethnic cleansing during the last 76 years of our occupation. And you can say a prayer in your heart to honor anyone who's passed or anything that's on your heart. And just take a deep breath in. And a collective prayer in whatever form is always powerful. الفاتحة لأرواح الشهداء بفلسطين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. Okay. The next poem I chose, as I said in my mini bio, was the duality of being Arab American and a Palestinian American in here, and just the notion of what are the identities that we all hold. A lot of the work that 411 Collective is doing is for immigration rights and the liberation and the empowerment of all of us as immigrants. And I don't know, who here is holding the nuance of numerous identities in the room, I am, And so this poem really spoke to me because it holds the difference, the waves, and It's called I Am an Arab American. I am an Arab American because I tend the fig tree as earnestly as the dogwood and the pine, because cinnamon and anise, cumin and cardamom inhabit my shelves and senses, because I bake both baklawe and blueberry pie for my family, because poems by Mahmoud Darwish and Lucille Clifton are my daily bread, because both Ibn Khaldun and Howard Zinn explain the world to me, because I am awed by the blueness of the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, because I see Gaza when a protester raises a fist in Ferguson, because Abu al-Qasim al-Shabi and Angela Davis inspire me to act, Because I treasure coffee from Yemen, dates from Iraq, pistachios from Syria, as well as pecans, corn, and apples from Georgia, Iowa, and New York. Because I write in languages that flow in opposite directions, because Arabic and English are my archetypes of sanctuary, because my name is unfamiliar to some and a comforting words for others to carry, because I grow jasmine in Virginia to conjure the fragrance of my first home, because melodies of the oud and the guitars dwell in my ears, because I listen to Kulthum, Fairuz, Ella Fitzgerald, and Joni Mitchell in one sitting, because to me, the olive tree is an ancestor, a food source, a healer, because I am the daughter of Palestinian refugees and we are all immigrants, because I've touched the splendor of a brown child in my womb, because my children see more than one world, inherit stories that astonish and bloom, because I want to protect the purple mountains and shining seas everywhere, because I embrace Hiawatha's 7th generation principle to live knowing that all our decisions will affect the world for hundreds of years, because I learned early on that karam, the Arabic word for generosity and kindness, is the most important belief to hold dear. Again, this is the work of poet Zaina Azam, and you can find her book online on her website. Okay, I have a couple more left. This next poem I chose because as Palestinians, we are fighting for the preservation of our identities, of our culture, our tradition, not just fighting and resisting for the land, which is the essence, but also resisting occupation on numerous forms, and one of them being the total erasure of our culture and our traditions. And a big way that we see this on a regular basis living here in America is also through food. And food activism is super important, and we're lucky to be living in the DC area where we have great folks such as our friend Jinan back there, Palestinian foodie. Yes, you can check her out or talk to her at the end. She does a bunch of pop-ups and speaks a lot on the concept of decolonizing our food and what that means as part of the resistance here in America. And also food as being in the diaspora is something that we hold on to for comfort. I know that especially during this last 10 months, nothing has meant more to me than cooking my grandmother's recipes or making mjaddara or learning how to make ka'ak, this traditional cookie with my parents. So food is not only a form of resistance for Palestinians, but living in the diaspora, it's also a form of connection and tradition and bringing that bag of za'atar from your auntie's garden in Nablus, which is what I literally do, and the tea that comes from your uncle's garden. And this is a form of connecting to the land and also the preservation of our culture and our people and our traditions. And so this is why I picked this poem, and also why it's super important that where you eat, where you go, that you support Palestinian restaurants, caterers, food. It's super, super, super important. Yeah. I can go on and on about this. Janan and I can. So if you want to talk about food and Palestine and all of that, find me later. Or restaurant recommendations, we have a whole list. Okay. This poem is called Nafas in the Kitchen. The Palestinian chef says nafas is like a spirit, an undefined knowing that lives in the act of preparing food, as if ancestors reside in the knives that chop and slice, the parers and the juicers, the measurers and the tasters. Nafas flows from the sense of spices from childhood, the deep colors of beets and saffron, the memories of how to stuff a grape leaf just so, pick mallow leaves from their stalks, grate nutmeg resolutely with a coarse metal shield. You can't teach nafas, she stresses, just like you can't implant a memory, a presence. It seeps into generations, forming something bigger than both the pinch of salt and the generous stewing pot. Nafas is the sigh that emanates from the core, the inhale and exhale into air to share. Even za'atar, she says, breathes between cultures, travels thousands of miles to bring nafas to new homes, kitchens in exile. That kitchen in exile line makes me want to cry every time. Okay, this is my last poem of the evening. I chose this poem because as we are in this tragic time, as we are, at least facing one of the world's, it's atrocious, and what we're seeing all over the world and and many of us are experiencing and witnessing is a genocide. There's also hope, there's also resilience, and there's also goodness that comes, inshallah, out of this. And part of it is, I know for me, a lot of it has been the community care, even look around, the collective, the collective power and liberation movements, and even to see folks wearing the kafiyeh and learning about what Palestine is and really speaking up to what we have been going through for 76 years now it's massive. And so, we always say we always hope that لعله خير, may we know what the, only God knows what the khair is, and may we know what it is, the goodness is. I'm not doing the actual translation, but it's yeah. So I chose this poem because I want to end with the concept of khair, and even as we're in these movements, as we're fighting, as we're getting tired, is to reorient to the goodness, to resource ourselves, and to find khair. So khair. Khair is the Arabic word for goodness. From the time farmers rise with the sun until night descends, there is talk of it. Songs and Quranic verses about khair. Morning of khair, evening of khair. There is no getting around goodness. تصبحي على خير, my mother would wish me as she kissed my forehead at bedtime. May you wake up to goodness. Later, I learned to respond, وأنتِ من أهله. May you be part of its family, the family of khair. Even watching TV as we waited for bad news from Gaza, she would admonish, khair inshallah, goodness, God willing, goodness, God willing. No matter the misfortune, she was sure Allah would eventually bring khair to Palestine. Maybe it all started with her neighbors in Yafa, the family whose name was Khair Allah, God's goodness. From kindness to comity, their ancestors packed so much in this name. It was a hedge against hardship. An incantation in their bones, Palestine's bones, where khair resides from morning till night, and a mother's kiss at bedtime, deep in a farmer's land. There, the roots of khair multiply in the earth, goodness bristling. All right, thank you.